Welcome, everyone. This is Recovery Dharma. I'm Julia. I'm one of the facilitators of this beautiful, beautiful Sangha. On Wednesdays, a couple years ago, it was actually during the pandemic, our wonderful Sangha member, Christopher, came up with this idea to have Zen days on Wednesdays. And so we spent a year and a half, I think, reading Suzuki Roshi's um, Zen Mind, Beginner Mind. And then for the last 2+ years, we've been reading a book by Roshi Joan Halifax called Standing at the Edge. And this particular book is all about looking at qualities that each of us possesses as a human being, as a complex, conscious being. We all possess the qualities of compassion. We all possess the qualities of integrity. We all possess the qualities of altruism in varying degree. And that variation in degree is what Roshi is pointing to in terms of an edge state. And when we get to the edge of that quality that's going to test us, we either overextend ourselves and experience some kind of distress and panic, or we under expose ourselves and we experience all the ways we engage aversion, avoidance, denial. So this edge state is a place where there's fertile ground for growth. And the last several weeks, we've been exploring compassion and just how expansive that concept and quality is. We all know the word. We all know the experience. We've all been recipients of compassion, and we also have been givers of compassion as well. But it's nuanced. There's all kinds of things to learn about it. And one of the ways we can grow and cultivate our compassion is by learning how to explore fearlessly those things that inhibit us from being compassionate. So today we're going to continue our conversation regarding the inhibitions of compassion. What gets in the way? Things like fear, judgment, fatigue. Today, we're going to talk about overwhelm. Yeah, Kari's like, ugh, yes. And so I'd like to begin our practice today with a sentiment of metta, of loving kindness. And may this sentiment, if you're experiencing any kind of overwhelm, even if it's a small overwhelm, we all know the feeling of being overwhelmed. And may I just say that coming to the journey of recovery is almost always a journey of overwhelm. Most people don't enter into the pathway of recovery because everything's going well. Most people enter because things have reached a point that they're very, very challenging. It's monumental. It's overwhelming. And then to be on the journey of recovery, to reimagine ourselves as a person with less habit energy is also incredibly overwhelming. So the fact that each of us has prioritized this time today is an extraordinary act of courage, self-respect, kindness. This sentiment of loving kindness reads, May you hold the stories of your experiences with reverence and awe. May you hold the stories of your experiences with reverence and awe. Take a moment, friends, and allow the body to enjoy being oxygenated by breathing, by bringing your attention to the breath. You don't have to breathe in any particular way. Your attention to your natural breathing is enough. And just observe your breath. Maybe it's a little shallow. Maybe it feels a little tight. No need to judge this. Just simply observe, breathe. Maybe notice if your shoulders are tensed and see if you can gently invite the shoulders and the muscles around them to relax. Maybe roll the shoulders gently. Pay attention to your beautiful faces. Many of us in states of overwhelm wear it on our faces. We furrow our eyebrows, we purse our lips. So maybe just lifting your eyebrows up and down and allowing a smile to emerge on the face is a way of relaxing the muscles there. All beautiful things to do to help us be present to any kind of overwhelm. This is what Roshi has to say. A factor that can challenge compassion is overwhelm. When we hear about large-scale problems like the global refugee crisis, species extinctions, and climate change, our brains can shut down in a kind of psychic numbing. It's not that we don't care. It's that the problem is too large to really even conceive of, so we put it aside and don't take action. It's here that I'd like to add something for you to contemplate if it resonates. I have often encountered people who are in states of overwhelm, frustration, bewilderment, confusion, whatever it is, even myself. And I hear myself or I hear other people say things like, I just don't care. I just don't care anymore. And I think that might be true. And I definitely don't think it's the whole truth. The truth of when we hear ourselves and take notice, or when we hear another person say such things, is fatigue. We're hearing fatigue. We're hearing confusion. We're hearing that psychic numbing. People don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I also care deeply. If we didn't care, we probably wouldn't say anything at all. It would just go by unnoticed. But the fact that we notice something enough to say, I don't care, lets me know on some conscious level, actually I do care. And I just don't know what to do. Roshi writes, it's a well-documented phenomenon that our desire to help declines exponentially as the size of the suffering group grows, even from 1 to 2. The Polish poet Zbigniew Herbert called this phenomenon the arithmetic of compassion. In an experiment on charitable giving, psychologist Paul Slovic and his colleagues studied the arithmetic of compassion. Slovic writes, we found that people might be inclined to send money to an individual person in need, but that if they heard that a second person also required aid but could not be helped, they were less inclined to donate to the first person. Meeting that need no longer felt satisfying. Similarly, when the need for assistance was described as part of a large scale relief effort, potential donors would experience a demotivating sense of inefficiency, arising from the thought that the help they could provide was but a drop in the bucket. This phenomenon is known as pseudo inefficacy. Pseudo because our sense of inefficacy is a perception, not a reality. But it's a perception that serves as a powerful demotivator when we know that there are some we cannot help. This mental shutdown is not metaphorical, but literal. Neuroscientists have found that the anterior cingulate cortex, ACC, which they believe controls our attention to emotionally arousing stimuli, becomes quickly habituated to disturbing stimuli and stops responding. This may be a kind of defense mechanism so we don't get too overwhelmed by negative input. I have little doubt that our constant access to bad news today via social media and online news sites contributes to psychic numbing, moral apathy, and a deficit of compassion. What she's saying, friends, is we become desensitized. And so in that desensitized place, we can feel like we don't care because we're not acting. We're not acting from a place of altruism or compassion, or we're acting from a place of transaction. And I'd like to turn this focus that Roshi has brought our attention to externally, and I'd like to turn it inward. And I'd like to invite each of us here for a moment to just see the ways that we have become desensitized by our own habits and even our own emotions related to those habits. Many of us have experienced so much regret that regret barely penetrates as a source of wisdom. Instead, it's a demotivator. We feel regret and then we go down a spiral into despair. And we're no longer able to access its teachings, its lessons, its wisdom. Same thing happens with shame. We've experienced so much shame that we've convinced ourselves that we're not deserving of anything good, or if anything good comes along, we're so quick to sabotage it. We've become desensitized to the balance of the positive and the negative, the balance of the light and shadow. The body's become and the mind has become overwhelmed by one or the other. So the practice is compassion for that part of us that has experienced shame and maybe has done things that are, I don't know, shameful. But let's not forget all of the acts of kindness that we've done, all of the good things that we've been capable of. And so let's offer ourselves compassion for that. Remember, in recovery, we're often told to take responsibility for our negative actions, for all the things that we've gotten wrong. But let's not be so one-sided. Let's learn to take responsibility for all the times we got it right. There isn't a whole human being out there that only ever gets it right. And if there is, they are likely the most boring person in all of existence. And that person would be the last person I would want to play with. Compassion for all the times we've got it wrong. Compassion for all the times we get it right. And then take that sense of compassion and extend it just a little bit outside of you, just a tiny bit, to a single person in the grocery store, to somebody on the subway or in the airplane, to a coworker, to somebody picking up the garbage, somebody sleeping on the street. And rather than convince yourself with your perception of not caring, care deeply, bring that forward, see this human being just like you, who's gotten it wrong and who gets it right. This is compassion in action. And it is a practice. Friends, we are usually experiencing overwhelm because we've extended ourselves too much and we're in some kind of empathetic distress or compassion fatigue. The most important thing to do when you identify that you're in a state of overwhelm is to smile at the recognition, smile at the acknowledgement. There are millions and millions of people going along just running on empty all the time, unpracticed, unskillful, reaction after reaction after reaction. The fact that you can see your overwhelm, you can acknowledge it and label it, is an extraordinary thing. And then the next thing to do is to breathe. And by that simple action, everything will automatically slow down. And insight will have an opportunity to be revealed. And you'll know what you need to do. Maybe have a really fresh glass of water, or have a good meal, or allow yourself to go to bed early, or take a mental health day, or pick up a magazine, or a million things that we do to slow it down and become more mindful and return to the state of practice. To be a whole human being is not to avoid the overwhelm. It's simply to notice the conditions of when it happens, learn, regroup, reset, and carry on. Thank you for your practice. Alrighty, friends. So that is going to bring us to the end, and you know, we're coming up with the holidays, and the holidays are tricky for a lot of people. Ram Dass was famous for having said, just when you think you have arrived spiritually, go spend a week with your family. Right? Because we fall into roles, we fall into habits. It's hard sometimes. And one of the things I always encourage people to do is and one of the simple habits to break are sort of the same old mundane, banal question we ask. So, how you doing? What do you do for a living? How's everything going? And I think we should celebrate Scott's brilliant image and just ask people, so what plate are you spinning? Hey, what's the size of your plate today? And people are going to be like, what? And just nod. Yes, that. I asked that. That really happened. My plate is, and just see what happens, because we all have a plate that we're spinning. We all do. And Lo, thank you for reminding us that it varies depending, and just even recognizing and owning this is my capacity. And I do not have to participate in creating conditions that are outside of my capacity. When I do, I create the conditions for my failure, and create conditions for other people to experience disappointment. Why would I do that? It's so good. So just when we can honor our capacity, it's so incredible. And what's hard about it is sometimes our capacity is pretty miserable. It's pretty hard. I'll just share just real quick. I have a daughter who's a cancer survivor, and when she was really ill, my son was 6 at the time, and then I had a 13-month-old baby at the time. So my life was very, very full and very, very busy. And things were really, really challenging. And I could not always be there for my son. I just couldn't be. And I couldn't always be there for my baby daughter. I just couldn't be. And it kind of shredded me at times. It really did. And then it just became a matter of, what am I doing? This is what I got. It isn't the best. It isn't even great. It isn't even good. It may actually at times be potentially harmful, but this is what I'm doing to cope, to deal with this very, very heavy stress. So don't forget that, friends. Life is stressful. It's hard. Open up to a little bit of leniency and a little bit of forgiveness, and allow those situations to inform your future. And part of what I learned from that experience was I didn't ask for as much help, primarily because I didn't know what I needed. And so being able to reflect on, what do I need? What would be helpful? Now I know. So if anything were like that were to happen again, I would know what to do differently. Powerful, powerful. And that's the best we can do. Let's go ahead, friends, and end our practice with a dedication of merit. Let's just do that together for a second. Roll your shoulders up, roll your shoulders back, open that heart center and inhale and then audibly exhale. Just ah. To be a whole human being isn't about not experiencing overwhelm or the conditions related to it. To become a whole human being and to continue that becoming is simply to grow in our awareness of the conditions that create overwhelm, and to also pay attention to the conditions that help ease our overwhelm. And to remember that when we are not overwhelmed, when we are in a place of consistent presence, our capacity to be of benefit increases. It is my belief that we are in recovery to uncover our Buddha nature, our bodhicitta, that soft, wounded heart that is devoted to this miracle of life to be of benefit, to ease suffering. Shantideva said it best. For as long as suffering exists, for as long as sentient beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the misery of the world. May your time here today and your practice here have eased whatever misery and suffering you're carrying just a little bit. May a smile rise upon your face, and may the gentle kindness imbued from the Sangha enter into your heart and be shared far and wide. May you know with confidence that this heals and transforms. This is the reason why you are here. Thank you for your practice, friends. Namaste. See you later, alligators.